Oh, right. Okay, I think we're live. Coach Schuman here with Lenny Dandridge. You know, he's now our big star on Big Mondays. Um, Welcome to Football in the Kitchen Sink. I almost said Success for Life podcast, which is my own. That's what happens, I guess when you're doing a bunch of different things. Um,
Absolutely.
But and now, how do I get? Let's see. Now I still have Derek up here. That's clearly not you.
Hey, up.
Wait. There we go.
There it is.
There it is.
Big Mondays.
Big Mondays.
It's appropriate too because I'm shorter, so it looks good.
Although I made you pretty close to as tall as me. Like
I know.
I was.
It's definitely not that close.
So yes. What's funny is as I was doing it, you're swole, and as I was making you like taller in height, you were getting so swole. I'm like, he's taking a whole lot of the whole entire. I don't know if I want to make him that wide in the picture. I want to.
Yeah. No,
so I kept you reasonable. You're a little taller than normal, but it's good.
Funny.
Oh man, so a lot going on, but not as heavy, obviously in football as normal. But there was one thing that I saw that was interesting. I'm certain you didn't see this, but if you did, it's even better. So you know who Gus Malzahn is, the Auburn head coach, or have you heard of him?
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was fired in after the season, even though he's had a tremendous record there, brought him to a national championship. And what the interesting point is not that he got fired, but the interesting thing is now he's the head coach at Central Florida. Oh. And 3 Auburn players have gone into the portal and transferred to Central Florida. And they think there's more going to do it. So what's really interesting, this is like kind of the first time that something like this on a possibly a scale level, like not like one guy who goes and follows his coach, but like on a possible scale level, and Auburn's trying to do damage control where multiple guys have gone into, and I can't remember who they hired as the head coach, but at Auburn, but they multiple guys have gone into the portal already, and 3 have gone right to where their former head coach is, and they expect multiple others that are probably going to do it as well. That's an unusual thing. So like when they came up with the portal, it was designed one of the reasons designed was if a coach gets fired, right? So in this case, this coach, and he's no longer there, I think the NCAA thought when they came up with the rule that the players, have a free ability to go somewhere else without any penalties, which is really very fair, in my opinion.
Very fair. I love it.
Think about when we were in college, right? When our head coach got fired, back then you didn't know what to do, right? So you just kind of played for whoever was there. Yep. It wasn't until, and you saw like when Brandon Bailey came in from West Virginia, and some of the guys came in like from Temple. Cole, I think Coles came from Temple. He might.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Coles
and Larry Austin came from North Carolina. That was the first time I really knew guys that like a lot of guys that had transferred, into a place. I didn't really understand all that at that point, right? Yeah. I'm sure you were the same way. You probably didn't know, like.
Yeah, I was like, I'm like North Carolina State to UConn. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Like the way our thought process back then would have been like you leave the school you're at, like, so that was kind of the first time I saw that. And that was probably the early stages of now, which they created a great rule, which was that you could get, but it's every rule has consequences, right? So the interesting consequences, which no one would have ever thought of, but now is being enacted, is that the players are now going and following the coach to the next school. So now, a lot of times when a coach gets fired, he doesn't necessarily get hired right away. But this guy, Gus Malzahn, has been wildly successful and basically was fired because he probably didn't bring a championship, even though he'd been to the national championship. He's been to the SEC championship. I think he won the SEC championship. And but he didn't win a national championship. So kind of like Auburn, which just has, that stepchild kind of thing going on because of Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
They probably feel the pressure, and they're trying to figure out how they can get to that stage. But what's interesting is he goes to the players are starting to go there, and that could happen in scale. So now, if you're a hiring coach, right? If you're a hiring coach at the college level, and a prominent head coach gets fired, a guy who most people like, guy's darn good, not a guy that's lost like every single game or something, but this guy's darn good. It's actually something to consider in the interview process.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe get some of his kids.
Right. You might get some of his kids because of the rule. What do you think? Do you think that that's I think that's all of it to me is a good thing.
I think it's good. I'm probably on the extreme when it comes to that stuff anyway. Like I never liked the sit out rule anyway. Right. I felt like if a kid wanted to go to another school, go to another school. Like it doesn't, maybe just because I felt like that sometimes. But
I did. I think every player has too. I mean,
sitting out, like to me, is not. I don't know. I just don't think it's a cool thing. I mean, you only have a certain amount of years to play,
right?
And now you're going to make a kid sit out because he's, in a situation is not good. I'm like, listen, if I'm leaving, you got another scholarship now anyway for somebody else that you can bring in that you want that maybe fits better or whatever. But I think it goes back to what you were talking about earlier before we started live. Is the control factor. Right. It wants to control everything. They want to control everything that someone does. So I like the portal thing. I definitely think it's great. Listen, you're going to get some drawbacks from everything. Right. But what's the drawback? That you can't control kids from leaving. Right. So I don't believe that you should be able to control kids. So I think it's great. And you know what I think is interesting is that, 20 years ago, there's no way kids would have left Auburn to go to Central Florida, right? So there's a lot with that, right? Like it is almost just as now with the age of social media and internet and all these different things, you can play anywhere and build your brand and whatever. Like kids are, there's a lot more parity. There's TV contracts for every school now, so it's not like. You go to a school and you're never going to get on television right now. Central Florida's on TV, UConn's on TV. There's all these TV packages with cable and all this other stuff. So kids don't feel like if they go to a school, they're just going to get lost somewhere. So, I think that's an interesting thing. 20 years ago, kids wouldn't be following the coast of Central Florida. Like they'd be like, no. I'm saying that.
That's a great point. And yep. I think your point about, they should have the freedom. When I haven't been a coach so long, I always would think, well, it is my thought process used to be before I had a child was, you should, ride it out.
Mm-hmm.
People are getting soft on those kind of things. And when I had my son, I started to think about it also as not just a coach, but a parent's eyes. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to think about it as if this was my kid, how would I feel if he was stuck at a place that he didn't want to be at? Well,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's not fair to anybody, right? So that doesn't work for anyone. And
nope.
the coach is there. That's probably not good for them too. You got a guy that doesn't want to be there. What's the point? Which I think most of the coaches now have adopted that attitude for the most part. That's why they're like, hey, if you really, they'll talk to him. They'll bring him in. They'll see where his mind is. If it's more frustration than actual desire to leave, then they'll try and work it out. If it's hey, he doesn't really want to be here, then hey, there's no point in keeping him there. And I think that's I think it's a good thing because it's created a weird dynamic for high school kids because recruiting for high school. Let's take the pandemic out of it because the 2022s and 2023s are up what's creek because of it, because they get extra. These guys are getting extra years, so there's always a trickle down effect on it. So I feel bad for a lot of the kids who are going to be seniors and going to be juniors because there's not going to be as many scholarships available. The portal made less scholarships available already, but I think there is a natural matriculation through the system. So, just like when we played, right? You had scholarship guys that were, you remember, like in camp, and you guys were, you come off practice one day and you're like, where's John Smith?
Yeah.
He went back to Florida. What?
Yeah.
Like last night?
You missed it. I didn't get the memo.
Like, when did he go back to Florida? He's done?
Yeah.
And that happens, I guess, and I'm sure now, I can only imagine now it's like guys come in and almost every other practice is a guy that's no longer there. So I think that's an interesting part of it. Another thing I thought that was pretty interesting, and I'm curious your take on it. So do you know about how the NCAA eventually is going to have, obviously, guys be able to take advantage of their likeness and make money from it? Okay. And I'm for it.
I love that too.
Yeah. So, but I want to get a little bit of your take on it. So they're going to be, you're in NCAA. That's why NCAA football is coming back. Although there's been some problems with the video game, because I guess some of the schools could not work out the licensing, I guess, with their own players. But there's something going along there. But eventually, in the long run, I think it's a good thing. There's going to be a lot of kinks in the beginning. I look at it like, me personally, I look at it like there's going to be some issues. There are going to be some guys that do something wrong, or schools that do something wrong, or guys who do marketing deals for people to do something wrong. But in the long run, this will work out to be a much better benefit for the players. What's your thought for it?
I don't know. My initial take on it is, maybe that'll. Listen, like you said, there's always going to be some shady stuff going on. There's always going to be under the table money and things going on. Like you can't prevent that, right? But I think that this will make for less of it, because now you're going to give them an opportunity, like kids who don't have, right? Like kids come from very poor backgrounds, or, and now you give them get a chance to earn a little bit. So maybe they're less likely to get bribed or whatever else, or, have any type of violations. Short of paying them, right? Like this is great, because now you're letting them have a piece of the pie, right? So I think it's good. I think it's more good than bad. I think there's definitely less negatives than positives, in my opinion.
I agree with that. And I like this Pete comments, Midnight Bus from Ken. This is a good point. So no, they're definitely not paying for their own school. I think this is part of the higher level of including. First of all, they're going to include everything, which is, like Alabama and them are already I think they're already doing it. I don't know exactly, but they're paying what you would call the full cost of going to school. You know what I'm saying? Pete Conley, he's just hilarious. He's got his comments that are coming up. I don't even. He somehow remembers things that I just don't remember, and he'll put a comment up there. I just don't know what he's talking about, But obviously, it's happened. Something happened. I can't figure it out.
I don't get to see the comments. I just see
how do you not see the comments? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I only see it'll flash up on the screen. I'll see it, and then it goes away, and then another comment comes up, and then it goes away, and then that's it. Like I got two of them, and now I don't see anything.
I wonder if they must. For next time, I got to figure out. I would love to see those comments. Oh wait, got it.
Oh,
you do see it.
I got it now, because I had to switch to. I had to click on the thing that says comments, and now it's all listed.
Oh, now you see him. See him. So he's great, because he'll say things I don't even know what he's talking.
Who's Paige Bookers?
I don't know what that is. Is that an actual person? I don't know. Trevor Lawrence was worth 1.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, this is true. This is true. So what should this is a great example. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields probably would be the other guy who I would have said would have made a lot of money. Maybe the BYU got not as much out in BYU, but he would have made some level of money, right? They were probably the three of the most famous guys. The Alabama running back, the Alabama quarterback, obviously. Alabama quarterback. So as much as Trevor Lawrence might have made from Clemson, Alabama seems to have deep pockets. And I would have guessed somebody would have came up with even more money, even though he may not be as valuable, quote unquote, as Trevor Lawrence is. They might have came with some big bucks for him, and the running back they would have came up with some big bucks for, and the receiver who won the Heisman, Devonta Smith. I think
you mean to get big bucks for what?
Like sponsorships, like they would have figured out. I guess that's part of the fear, but I don't think there's anything wrong. If this donor talks to this dealership and says, hey, listen, we want to make sure this guy makes $1 million. Sponsor him, your business. I'll fund you. That's a business thing. I'll fund your business to sponsor this guy, your car dealership. And, Trevor Lawrence makes $1.5 million. I think, you know what? And, people's concern is like, what about the jealousy on the team? What is GBB?
Come on, Pete. Tell me what GBB means.
What the GBB player? Lenny?
What the GBB player? Lenny? I don't know.
He's got to be more clear. It's Pete-isms. Pete, you remember those Pete-isms you used to have all the time? Oh.
But no, I mean, I think it's good. I think there's so much money being made in these. These kids, they should get some of it. Listen, should they get 1.5 million? Should they get 2 million? I don't know. But I don't have a problem with it. Honestly. I mean, let's stop trying to make this an amateur thing. Once they started making so much money, the whole amateur thing went out the window. Like you gotta let that go.
Right.
It's amateur when you go to the Olympics. For what's that? What do they call it when they're on the the bobsled and like
but there is no more amateurism in Olympics. There's no such thing anymore.
Right, but what I'm saying is like when it's a sport like like curling or something where like there's no money being made, then okay, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like if there's no money being made at it, then I get it. Ping pong, whatever it is, table. You know what I mean? But as soon as you start making money,
what made money at ping pong?
Do you remember the guy? And do you remember the guy who played? He was a receiver. He was just like a slot receiver, but he was also like this like great like downhill like skier.
Oh yeah, Jeremy Bloom.
Do you remember like that whole mess with him because he couldn't play ball or something happened?
Olympics I remember that.
Yeah, he ended up getting money for skiing, so then that made him ineligible to play football. And it's like, what the
heck does that have to do?
What are we doing? So I think going in this direction is the best way because now it's like, listen, make it what it is.
Didn't Scotty Burrell have an issue with that? He was a baseball player, right? Wasn't Scotty? Wasn't there a whole issue where like he could only play pro in the summer, right? Wasn't there something like that? Because he was playing baseball.
He was a pitcher. He was with the Blue Jays organization.
But he couldn't play for the college team.
Yeah, I know. It's like what are we doing? But listen, we can go around and around in circles about this stuff, but I mean, let's be real. Like, education, right? Why do most people go to college? Why do you go to college? You go to college because you just want to go to college, or do you go to college because you need a degree so you can get out and earn? Right. That's why you go to college. Right. So if your earning potential has to be tied to your sport, then you should get, that's why you should be there. You should be there for the sport. Now everybody can say what they want about that, and they can say, "Oh, well, you got to get your education." You can get your education anytime, dude. Like it's not like there's no rule that like after age 22, I can't.
Right.
It's, you know what I mean? Like I can't go to class.
Shaq has a doctorate. Okay, now is a doctorate. Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal went to the pros after back then it was probably 3 years or something or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was after his sophomore year.
Sophomore year.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, he didn't finish. Went back because he promised his parents he would finish. Went back while he was a pro, finished. Then he went back, got his master's degree. Then I think when he was in his late 30s, he decided he wanted a doctorate. He's retired, and he went and got a doctorate degree. So now he's Dr. Shaq. So, obviously, if he what has Shaq made in his career? $500 million. If someone could go make $500 million, he could probably, in the end, be the most educated person in the world if he really wanted to, because he has the money to just go and pay to go and take the classes, finish the degree, and move on to the next level. It's Pete knows the schools he goes at, Barry University. I mean, Pete, how do you know these things?
I love it.
I don't know how you know it, but I think that's like you're 100% right. You know what video used to bother me? I don't know if it bothered me, and I don't know why it bothered me so much. But I just feel like it was a lie. The NCAA, and they still use this video, does this video that 99% of us are going to go pro in something other than our sport.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that the most deflating video?
I know.
Like, we already know that we're going to college, that most of us aren't going to make it. Can't we still have the dream of that we can play pros?
Why are you killing the dreams?
Why are you killing our dreams like with a commercial so high school kids can watch this stupid commercial?
Listen, I tell you what, man, and I don't know, maybe this is unpopular. College football is a lot of work, and it's hard. It's mentally draining. It's when things aren't going the way you want, and you're out there and you're killing yourself, you're getting banged up. If you don't have a dream, do you really want to do it? At least me. I mean, I don't know. I can honestly say that if I wasn't holding on to that dream, or if I didn't have that money tied to it, right? Would I still want to play? Listen, so some of the motivation is the dream. So don't kill the dream. Kill the dream.
Don't kill the dream.
Don't kill the dream.
When you were a kid, I'm guessing, and you can tell me I'm wrong. One of the things you would write down is you wanted to be a pro football player. Am I wrong?
I wrote it down all the way through high school.
I was the same way. I wrote it right down. I used to say I was going to be an Olympian in track. Obviously, I was highly illogical. But
that is great.
But it's funny because as a kid, I went to national championships in track as a kid, in the youth stuff, and I would be in the finals. My wake up to I was very good at track, but maybe not going to be an Olympian was when I went to the national in 8th grade. I had just in the hurdles. I had just walked. Two of the guys ended up being Olympians, by the way, that I beat at the time. Obviously, I was physically very mature as an 8th grader.
Yeah. That is great.
But I waltzed through in the high hurdles and they just have the 200 intermediates in 8th grade, and I won the regional championship, which was 5 or 6 states, and I went down to the national championship, and I'm like, I'm going to win this national championship, and it was the first time that every kid in every lane was my size or bigger, and I was like, holy cow, they're all as big as me. Wait a minute. I was always the big jack, fast, and I was like, whoa, this is gonna be and the high hurdles I didn't run well because I was so excited. I was actually, I was a very good, just like you, I was a very good competitor. I was so jacked up, I was too jacked up.
Yeah.
I was on top of the hurdles and I clipped it and I didn't run a great race. I would get too amped up. That's kind of how I was. Some people retract. I would get way I was so fired up, I was going to tackle somebody, and that's how I ran. And the intermediate hurdles, which is 200, so you have to be a little more calm when you run it. I took off, and I'm like, wow, I'm running a great race, and I'm just on my lane. And as I come off the curve, I look up, and there's 4 guys ahead of me flying.
You're like, whoa.
whoa! I'm like, whoa! I thought I was flying. I'm like, I'm flying. I come off the curve and I'm like, whoa! There's 4 guys ahead of me. What is going on? And I ran my best race, but it was like I finished like 7th or 8th, I think it was, which is great. It was a national champ, but it was the first time I was like, I came out. My father was like, you ran great. I'm like, I ran great. There were 4 guys like 15 yards ahead of me. I'm like, I don't know if I'm as good as I think I am.
That is funny. That is funny.
So, but it was interesting. But that dream, I would say, like that dream, that gets you so far. Like I thought, like it helped me obviously in the long run improve as a player in what I did, because I realized over time I realized, I got to keep working. You know what I mean? Because I was good, I was winning, but now like there are people better than me. But that dream was like, that carries you so far. Yes, you have to know. Everyone needs to know what the reality is.
Right.
You need to know what the reality is, and you need to be able to address both the reality and the dream. But don't kill the dream.
Don't kill the dream.
Well,
I sometimes think that I look back at my career and I look back at like playing ball and like listen, the older I get, the more I'm like, I just, you kind of say, well, maybe I just didn't have the goods, right? Like that's what you say. That's the reality, right? But there is something to be said for if you're committed to your dream. And I think sometimes the practical side of yourself prevents you from achieving everything, right? That's in you. Because you're almost too practical, like to the point where it's like, okay, well, I got this balance. And then you start to say, well, I'm probably not going to make it anyway. So am I going to do that extra sprint? Am I going to go up to the field 15 minutes early before? Am I going to do that? Right. And it kind of gets in your head. So it's a balancing act where you have to say, you know what, I'm all in on this. I'm still going to do my academics. I'm still going to do everything. I'm going to go to class. I'm going to do all that stuff. But when I'm talking to myself, I'm still living that, hey, I can make it. And that's why you don't like that commercial, because it's like, why shouldn't it be that I'm going to make it? And then if I don't, right, I have something to fall back, rather than, hey, I'm just out here to be out here, and I'm really not going to make it. Like, so I'm just out here. You know what I mean? Like there's a different mentality.
Absolutely.
So
I think your point on that, are you going to go 15 minutes early? Mm-hmm. Are you going to stay the extra time?
Mm-hmm.
When and people don't realize that now FCS is kind of like 2 levels. Like you have like the conference we were in where they're all on scholarship. And then you have, I think, a few conferences that like have less scholarships, but the ones that are all on scholarship, like ours was the Yankee Conference and the Atlantic 10, now it's the CAA. Those conferences are very close to being Division I, and players every year go to the pros. Okay.
Yep.
And even in college, and my thing is this, even though the odds are against you, if I knew a little more about as I got older, I felt like they worked harder on killing the dream than as you kept going through. And not coaches, by the way, not coaches.
Right.
The coaches did not, whether it was a coach I loved or didn't love, like they never did that. They were trying to get you better. What I came to realization is that everything around you would tell you, and maybe even sometimes your parents, okay, not intentionally, they just wanted you to make sure you did what you had to do at school, but unintentionally could drop things in your head that says, hey, you're not just a football player, you're all those kind of things. And your point about, in some cases, that little bit over the course of 4 or 5 years could be the difference between you. I'm not even saying that you become a pro for sure, but getting into a camp, getting an opportunity, and not getting an opportunity. So now when you get to non-scholarship levels, that's just a whole different thing because it's a lot. I think at that point you really are playing for the love, and I respect those guys because they want to play college football. That it's so hard, but there is a Division III guy that's going to be drafted this year, and you never know. But I think putting in that time do those outside factors weigh down you? I think it actually does. And I think a big thing that I would have never thought about until I got into the last, I would say 5 or 10 years, is that it's important to foster both of those things at the same time and make sure they understand that you should be doing everything you can to make your dream happen. And you should be doing everything you can to make sure you do what you need to do in school to get to where you need to be for that. And those things can coexist.
Yes.
Where I have to say, when I used to run my camps, I used to say, hey, if you end up making the pros, you make the pros. Don't neglect your academics. Now my approach is you need to work as hard as you can to be the very best you can for what your dream is as an athlete. Whatever that highest dream is, you got to do everything you can there. And at the same time you're doing that, you need to do everything you can academically. So you take care of both bases at the same time. So you put yourself in the very best overall situation, no matter what happens.
Yep.
You're in the best overall situation. If you're ready to be a pro because of that, great. If it doesn't work out at that level and somehow you don't make it, you also are in a position to get a great job, get yourself in a good situation. And I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on with that. I mean, listen, if you're gonna make to the pros, right? Like, you can't leave anything out, right? Like you have to exhaust it, right? Because it's the elite of the elite, the best of the best of the best of the best, right? So, whereas this might come out, I don't want it to come off wrong, but you need the A+.
Absolutely.
Right. Whereas your academics, I'm not saying don't achieve for the A, but if you get a B in your chemistry class, you're still okay. You get a B in especially if you're an FCS, or if you're not you're not I mean, how many, there's only you got Lawrence Taylor or Walter Payton or these guys, right? So I'm saying is those fringe guys that are kind of just making it or whatever, not superstars, right? You need an A. You need A+. You need to give A+ effort in order for that to happen. So, also it depends on the kid, right? Where they are academically, what their strengths are, all of that stuff. But I think you're right. I mean, you got to go all in with it. Otherwise, you can't expect the results to be, what you would want. So,
absolutely. And then Pete brings up, this is a good point. Okay, and it's a fair point. So my whole thing on this is it has to come from the kid. So the parent exposes him to the different things. In the end, if the kid doesn't enjoy it, as you always have to keep asking your kid, we're doing all this. Are you enjoying this process? Is this something you want to do? Right. And if you're, I don't know, if you're jamming football or lacrosse or whatever, or soccer or whatever down his throat, and he decides that he doesn't want to do that, and you keep jamming down his throat, and he'd really go and wants to be in the math league. Well, you need, put him in the math league, what I'm saying? And the one thing I think that part is important as a parent is it has to come from the kid. And early on as a youngster, he doesn't know. You expose him to everything. He starts to figure out what he wants and what the things he likes to do. And then, when he confirms that he really wants to start to become good at something, you do have to push him along a little bit. Now, overbearing, making him do something when he's all the time, no. But you do want, once you get to high school, I think when he's young, you can get to a certain point. If he wants to push himself to the max, great. If he is a little bit hesitant, let him enjoy it. He'll be ready when he's ready. If that is high school, then you start, but once he comes to a sport, let's say in high school, and he says, if he has a conversation with you and says, hey, Dad, I'd like to play college football, then that's, to me, is hey, this is what we need to do. These are the things that you need to do. If you're willing to do that, we can have a conversation about college football. If you're not willing to do that, you want to enjoy your high school experience, you want to play sports, there's nothing wrong with that, and that's you don't have a quote unquote dream there, then you do what the coaches need to do. But if you tell me you want to be a college athlete, now we're having a different discussion, and I think that's an important thing, to prevent the overbearing part, which is a great question by Pete. There are parents that are overbearing. You don't have to look any further than what was the quarterback who played for USC who ended up having all those Marinovich.
Yeah, Marinovich.
Right, like his father probably wanted it more than him, and ultimately he struggled with that from a mental side standpoint. But also knowing your kid, it's important to know your kid, to know that like he's the kind of kid that can get pushed, or he's the kind of kid that, as much as you love your kid and you want him to do something, sometimes you have to take a step back and say, he's not there yet. Okay, that's fine. Take a step back. He's not there. Let's revisit it next month, next week, next year. See if he's there. If he's not there, and that patience is Pete's on it. Marinovich, right, Tom Marinovich, right away. So, I think that's an important side of it, and I think that kids going in and figuring out what they like and helping them get exposure to it ultimately helps them figure out what they want to do. They may not want to do what you want to do, but there is something that they want to do. I mean, that you could take it to the bank. I always talk from more of a sports standpoint, but it may not be there's something they want to do. You got to figure that part out. The only thing I'm not letting them do is become a full-time gamer. That's the one thing I ain't letting them do. Like, if they want to play some games for fun every once in a while, I have no problem with that. But full-time gamer, like when they start to talk like that, I feel like, you know what? You become an adult and you want to be a full-time gamer, hey, you're over 18 and that's what you decide you want to do. I'm no longer over you, but not as a kid. I think I personally think it's possibly detrimental to them in a lot of different ways. If it's not, if it's not understood what can happen to them, because they don't know what's happening to them in that.
Right.
Now, if they're an adult and they choose to do it, hey, more power to it. You want to be a pro gamer and you're 20 years old, I can't stop you. And that's the life you chose. You asked me for. Yeah.
You do what you want when you're an adult, but no, you're not gaming. Not gaming. I'll throw that thing right out the window.
Oh yeah.
You can play a little bit, but I'm not on board with that either. But I want to shift gears. I don't know if you want to stay on the topic. I want to shift gears, and this just kind of popped in my head because somebody texted me. I forgot who it was. A friend of mine was asking me. So NFL, JJ Watt. So JJ Watt, wants to be on a contender. Which I don't know if Arizona's a contender, right? Like that's what he said. He wanted to be on a contender. Yeah, I mean they're a playoff team, but are they really going to win a championship? I don't know. But anyway, he brought up a point. He wanted to know if JJ Watt is already a Hall of Famer. So my knee-jerk reaction was yes. That was my knee-jerk reaction. But I just wondered what your take is and like what your standards are for Hall of Fame. I have a little bit of a different take on Hall of Fame than maybe some people, but I don't know what you thought.
Well, my thought process is this: he's a Hall of Famer because his production through a certain time period was super high. Yes, super high. When you start to address like length of years doing it, like I don't know if he will get their length of time doing it. Yeah, but I think his production in a certain time period warrants Hall of Fame. The one thing I would bring up is this: I do feel that obviously the NFL now, I don't know how many years it's been, but like you're at 100 years, and you starting as you're getting 100, you have 100 years worth of players that. Some might have won. I think it gets harder and harder to get into the Hall of Fame, because especially like there might be players from like the 80s and 90s that you could say maybe did for a short time period somewhat similar to J.J. Watt, but maybe aren't in the Hall of Fame for whatever reason. And the farther they get away from it, the less likely they are. That was the whole argument with Drew Pearson finally getting into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that was overdue. That was overdue.
Right, but he was hurt by the level of production later year receivers.
Yeah.
He didn't get in right away. And then as you got into the 90s and the 2000s where guys are starting to put up bonker numbers, and then you're comparing. So the question becomes, because you have to wait 5 years. Whenever he retires, whenever that is, as he gets to the time when you're getting compared with the modern players are more guys producing at a higher level, and does that become an issue? Let's say sack production. I don't know. I'm not saying this is going to happen because I don't think it will, just because of the way the game is now. But let's say sack production goes through the roof and you got multiple guys getting 18, 19 sacks every year. It could make it hard 5 years down the road for them to take a look back at J.J. Watt when they compare him with other guys in similar situations.
Yeah.
But my instinct says right now, yes. Just like I think Cliff Branch, I don't think he's in the NFL Hall of Fame, right? He should be.
So, yeah. So here's the problem, and this is my whole take on the Hall of Fame, right? Like, J.J. Watt's a Hall of Famer, without a doubt, in my mind. Like, that is it. Because, first of all, you can't look at numbers, and you can't look at numbers specifically outside of the generation, right? Like, you got to look at numbers in the generation, because as the game changes, numbers don't matter. Like, if you went by numbers, like Lynn Swann doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
If you look at numbers, now his numbers are fine for his era, but like compared to this era, like, are you going to tell me, I don't know,
Terry Bradshaw?
Pick any receiver now. Right.
I would say Terry Bradshaw's like 50% passing.
If you can pick you can pick like an average middle of the road receiver now. His numbers are going to be way better than Lynn Swann's, right? Is he a better receiver than Lynn Swann? No, he's not. So for me, dominance at your position for a 5 year, 4, 5, 6 year, in that range, right? And JJ Watt was out of his mind for like a good 4 or 5 year run where he was unequivocally like the best 1 or 2 D lineman in the game without question. The dude won Defensive Player of the Year 3 years in a row, right? So to me, for that moment in time, he was the best. So like, if you're ever the best in an extended period of time, not 1 year, not 2 years, like 3, 5 years, where you're just like that good, then to me, that's what makes a Hall of Famer, right? Did you affect the game in a way that made you the man for like that period of time? Like what Aaron Donald is doing right now, Aaron Donald is a Hall of Famer, right? Like, because he's right. But like, I put more stock in that than the guy who is never the best, but he did it for longer. That's me. Like, that's how I look at it. Because
how about Bo Jackson, who's not in the NFL?
I want to remember. So the problem with Bo, though, and the problem with Bo is because Bo didn't commit to football. So that's the only thing. Like if Bo had committed to football and for full time and wasn't playing baseball, then you got to put him in. But my thing is like, even like Terrell Davis, right? Terrell Davis had such a run that it was undeniable. Like, he had a run. Gale Sayers, those guys had like runs, right? I wouldn't put Terrell Davis in the same,
but you're right,
as Gale Sayers. But what I'm saying is like you got to be able, especially in football, because you have such a short period of a peak, right? And especially for like a D lineman or like a running back, where like you're explosive. It's not like quarterback where like you can kind of like Tom Brady's able to like, you don't have to be as explosive. You don't have to be like, you know what I mean? So like you can still maintain it for a long period of time. But like, skill guys or D linemen or linebackers, or where you got to have that explosiveness. You need to be young, basically, right? JJ Watt to me is without a doubt. I mean, he's for that period of time, he was an all-time player. Like, and that's what I definitely think he's a Hall of Famer. I don't know.
Well, I think he is. I think he is. I think all of your points are valid. I think. Oh, by the way, Pete, Harry Carson is in the Hall of Fame. Just so you know, he has to. Harry Carson's in the Hall of Fame. I was pretty confident in that one. How about Carl Banks? I wonder if Carl Banks might be a bigger question because he's like, I don't know. I mean, he might be an I don't know. I have to look it up. But
but a guy like Carl Banks, right? Like, do you immediately say, oh yeah, he's it's not immediate for me. Now that doesn't mean he doesn't deserve to be in. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm not judging because there's guys that get in. Like if a guy gets in, he gets in. Like, I'm not gonna rain on his parade.
Right.
But before Jerome Bettis got into the Hall of Fame, if you asked me, I would have been like, no, not really. But now he's in. Okay, great. He's awesome. He's a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean?
Jerome Bettis, I always thought was like he was good.
And I love the Steelers.
College, he was dominant.
Yeah.
Pros, he was good. Like, you know, I mean, Frank Gore's probably going to get in the Hall of Fame, but is Frank Gore elite?
See, I don't think he's elite, and that's my thing. So, you know, but again, you know, so I think there's levels to the Hall of Fame, right? Like there's the Barry Sanders Hall of Fame guy, and then there's the Frank Gore. Like, he's in, and Jerome Bettis is in that category, and then you got the Jim Browns and Emmitt Smiths, and you know, it's just we're just talking running backs right now, right?
Right.
That's just a different group. Listen, it's amazing what Frank Gore's doing, right? Like the fact that
physically,
it's unbelievable, right? But like, can you write the story of the NFL without mentioning Frank Gore's name? Absolutely. But that's not how they do the Hall of Fame, right? Like, now, for me, the Hall of Fame would probably have a lot less people in it,
right?
If I was doing it, but
you know,
I'm not going to disparage guys that are in. So, you know,
right. So that makes it right. You're almost like it really, like, you know, the slam dunks in your view should be in the Hall of Fame. The rest of the guys were great players or very good players, but maybe.
Well,
you know what was difficult?
The 100. What was that thing that they did? Remember they did the
yeah.
So to me, I think that's great because when you do something like that, then it kind of separates those guys out.
That's true. That's a good point. So you have Hall of Fame, and then you have the best of all time,
right?
Which is fair. I think it's fair. I think it's very fair. And from a marketing standpoint, it is good for the NFL to have more guys in than less because it creates interest in the people's teams, right?
Yeah.
My player from my team got into the NFL. I come out to Canton. How they have the fans there. Everybody celebrates those players from those teams. You have, fans that. So it makes perfect sense. But you're right, how they separate it out. All right, I know you got to run. One last thing I want to bring up.
Go ahead. Yep.
So I thought it was really interesting. Chris Sims has remember we were kind of talking about the quarterback thing, that it wasn't like Chris Sims has come out with some toss it on its head type of stuff.
I think I heard something. Go ahead. Tell me.
He thinks Kellen Mond is better than Trevor Lawrence.
Wait, who's that? I don't even know.
Texas A&M quarterback.
Wow. I'm sorry, dude.
And I wouldn't have thought that. I don't even, honestly, I know who he is because I watch a lot of college football.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have even thought that was a thought. Okay.
I didn't even hear, but I haven't even heard his name. Like, he's not in anybody's top.
Sims has dropped. So he started dropping some things that are interesting. And then obviously he said that Zach Wilson is the number one.
Okay.
So now he's starting to, he was kind of saying that he thinks Trevor Lawrence is maybe 3. And
So this Mon kid is second?
He has Fields above some of the guys that, remember we were saying Fields was dropping.
Yeah.
Well, he just, I don't know if he's throwing things out there because it definitely generates a lot to write about. But he said, I'll just kind of read what he said, and that's the only way I best could do it. So Chris Sims. It was Chris. Yeah, right. I know. His son. But his son. So who played I think for the Bucks for a little bit, maybe. So I guess in 2017, he had Patrick Mahomes in his own draft ahead of Deshaun Watson and Mitch Trubisky. Well, obviously, he proved out to be right on that. He also had Josh Allen ahead of Sam Darnold and Justin Herbert, which he proved out to be right on that. So now he's covered.
I don't know, man. Justin Herbert's pretty good, dude.
Yeah, Justin Herbert is pretty good.
Give him some time. But go ahead.
Give it some time. So now he's saying Zach Wilson should be ahead of Trevor Lawrence. And then let's see, 2020. So 2020 he had Burrow, Herbert. Okay, I'm a little confused by what they're saying about this, but let me just try and pull up the Kellen Mond thing. Justin Fields, it's interesting. So Kellen Mond, and then I'm gonna let you go. First, what's his name again? Trevor Lawrence. So Kristen said it. Let's see where it was. Trevor Lawrence. Orlovsky said some stuff about this too.
Orlovsky's really out there though. He goes off the deep end. I love him though. He's a Utah guy. So I got.
Of course.
I love him.
Let's see. Okay, here it is. His ranking is out, and he has. All right, so he has. All right, so I'm wrong on that, but he does think that Mon might be better than Trevor Lawrence, but he still picks. He goes Wilson, Lawrence, Mac Jones from Alabama, which
you like Mac Jones?
I do like Mac Jones just from a throwing standpoint. I like him a lot. I don't. My question on Mac Jones is, without the Alabama line, does that make a difference? You know what I'm saying?
And the Alabama receivers.
Right. That's the only thing I don't know. If I'm judging how he threw the ball, like he was like 80% passing or something.
Yeah.
Kellen Mond is number 4. Fields is 5, and then Trey Lance is as 6, which I just thought was interesting that Kellen Mond was 4, and then he was talking about like that he thinks that Mond might be better than Lawrence. Obviously he must.
Kellen Mond though. Like,
what's that?
I haven't seen that guy play. I don't think.
Kellen Mond.
Is he a big guy?
He's pretty big. He's lean. He runs decent. He's really a chucker. He throws the ball. He's a guy that everyone thought was going to be a Heisman candidate, but it never quite got there. Like there were times when he did, and then he just like he had a good year this year, and then obviously Texas A&M had a really good year, but Texas A&M was a little bit under the radar just because of their schedule, kind of thing. And I think he started from the time he was a freshman. I could be wrong on that, but I was he's been playing for a long time, and he was like a rock star right away. Then it kind of faded. Then he was a rock. Now this year he had a very good year. Some blamed like how they ran the offense before. What's his name? Who the head coach is there now? He was at Florida State, but whatever. Before he got there, like they blamed that maybe it's a style of offense. So I think he's very good. It didn't even dawn on me that he would be a first rounder. I'll put it like that. So the fact that he says that is kind of a little bit of a wild card. But the bigger point is this. I think it goes to what we kind of said, like the quarterback thing, even though all of these guys may be really good. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's no slam dunk per se.
Where are you going to land, and what situation are you going to be in to make it better, right? To make it have some success. Jury's still out. Like, what's going to happen with Sam Darnold? They can keep him with the Jets. Is he going to go somewhere else? Is he going to end up being a player? Is he not? We don't know.
And it's not fair always to the number 1 pick because the number 1 pick goes to the worst team. The guy who ends up being the 20th pick is going to the better team. So if he gets an opportunity either through injury or, for example, the guy who got drafted to the Packers in the first round, who's backup to Aaron Rodgers.
Oh yeah, what's his name? Jordan Love.
Is Love better than the other guys, or if Aaron Rodgers at watching him prepare, right?
Mm-hmm.
And seeing how he does things. Is that a mentorship program in itself that develops Jordan Love? And now he steps into a good team. Let's say he retires, right? And if Jordan Love is good, he steps into the team. And if he becomes a starter, and then you go say, wow, Jordan Love is better than XYZ. It's also goes some argument of, even with Brady, as a sixth rounder, had he early on gone to the worst team, for example, would he have had a chance to become Brady? Did going to the Patriots, having a little bit of time under Bledsoe, who was, people underrate Bledsoe, man.
He's good.
He was
good quarterback. Good quarterback.
Really good quarterback. Like, he won a lot of games. Like, the only reason maybe he didn't win a Super Bowl may have been because he got hurt and Brady turned out to be a little bit better at the time. But Brady having that time to learn and be in Bill Belichick's system, I think it's funny where everyone's like, oh, well, it shows that Brady is better than is the reason. Brady, I think, became the reason, but wasn't initially. It took time, and that development was a key. Now he almost becomes more important than Bill Belichick is once he's developed. I don't know if that makes sense.
I would like to see, and listen, I'm going to go over a little bit here because now you're in my wheelhouse. So I would have liked to have seen what would have happened with Brady, and we're never going to know. But after they won those first 3 Super Bowls, and I think anybody who knows football would say the reason behind those Super Bowls was less Brady and more the defenses, they had a lot of really good defenses, and they were more of a ball control. Like, it wasn't like, Brady was lighting it up in those years, those first early years, those first 3 Super Bowls. I think it was 01, 03, and 04, right? Had Brady, in 2006 left the Patriots, like 2005, like then what, right? Would he have still developed into? We don't know. Like, I still think he would have been a very good player, great player, maybe, but I don't know about this, right? Like, it all worked together for him and Belichick. It just it was a synchronicity that they had, it just worked out. But I have a question. So I'm going to get back to Sam Darnold, and it's only because I'm hearing about it on the radio, right? We're here, right?
Right.
Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, right? Sam Darnold goes to the Cleveland Browns in the draft. Baker Mayfield with the Jets. Because right now people are thinking Darnold's a bust. He's a lot of people, not a lot of people aren't, but a lot of people are. Like, he's a bust, give up on him, whatever. You take Sam Darnold and put him on the Browns, who weren't a good team, but they had a lot of pieces, right? They had a lot of really good defensive players. They have a great running game now. They have some receivers, and now they have a coach. You put Sam Darnold in that same situation. Do you think Sam Darnold would be as good or better than Baker? I know that Baker would have been a mess in New York. Like, there's no way he would have been able to carry a team. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no way. Not in New York. It just wouldn't work. But would Sam Darnold have been, not that Baker's lighting it up, but he's doing well, would Sam Darnold be doing maybe better or as good as Baker is in Cleveland? What do you think?
So I'll go Pete right here. I think that's part of the truth. So I think Baker Mayfield has a desire to be the center of attention, okay, and is willing to work too. So he's not like, he's a little different than Johnny Manziel, who just got way too much attention, was basically a celebrity, and didn't know how to handle the celebrity status even in Cleveland. Drake's flying him here and all this kind of stuff. Whereas Baker Mayfield loves to be the center of attention, but seems to really have a focus on what he's doing. Now, that desire to be in the center of attention in New York could be a problem, I think. Yeah. Because you are going to be the center of attention. And if you're grabbing at things all the time, even though you're going to work hard, I think it would have been much more difficult for him in New York. Whereas I think Sam Darnold playing at USC where you are a rock star as a quarterback there. Because at the time there was no pro. Now there's pro teams, but there was really no pro team at the time there, and just everything I've seen from like Reggie Bush and how he talks about what it was like, and a lot of the guys that play USC and even UCLA, kind of, but more USC than UCLA, what it's like. So I think he was more used to that, Hollywood, all that kind of stuff, and coming to New York was not as big. I think New York more has to do with the fact that they're so bad and they've had such a bad situation that maybe it wasn't the right fit. So if he went to the Browns, would he have been as good as Baker Mayfield? The only reason I say I don't think so is this. I was not a huge fan of him in college.
Darnold.
One reason, not from potential and arm and all that stuff. I thought that he threw a lot of interceptions. And I'm always a little bit hesitant on guys that throw a lot of picks, because even though they got all the other tools, there's a decision-making thing that has an issue. And if you don't mentor that decision-making process early on in the pros, not that a guy can't improve on that, he can. And in the old days, they threw more interceptions half the time than picks than touchdowns as it was. Now they do a much better job of mentoring that decision-making process. So could that have gotten improved? But that, I think, if you look at sometimes his failings in the Jets, it's always a bad timed interception. And I think that is where going to a bad team would go to haunt him possibly everywhere. Whereas you go to, like, let's say a Belichick early in your career. I think even if you had that mistake early on, there's a chance that can get improved, because he can really work that out and focus on your process, which I think he is great at. Like, and there are other guys like Andy Reid, probably like that. Those are the benefits that Mahomes and those guys have when they get with a guy that can work out these things in decision-making, quick decision-making that helps them as a quarterback. I think it changes how they play at the quarterback position. And I think Baker Mayfield came in with good decision-making process to begin with.
Yes.
So there was less work that had to be made as a quarterback in that part. That was where I was a little bit more confident with him than like Sam Darnold. That, he was the Heisman Trophy winner, and if you look at his passing percentage, his touchdowns, he was unbelievable with that. And I think that's a large part of it. Now, if you don't have the arm strength, okay, there's probably some quarterbacks in college that maybe get drafted as 7th round or something like that have this incredible passing percentage, but they just, when they go to the pros to get it in those tighter and tighter windows as the athletes get better and better, they can't just it's going to be harder for them to zing it in there. It's like with like the 7-on-7 club, right?
Yeah.
Like, we all have good quarterbacks, but there are some guys that really can just, like, all of a sudden, like, they need to get it there now. They make the decision and zing it there now, and it's not like being the pros, but they can handle tighter coverage better because they just have that cannon that could get it there now accurately. So I think those are factors, and so I think that those, and it was Pete brought up an interesting point. I think this also goes to Tim Boyle, who we represented when I had the agency, who played on first and went to Eastern Kentucky. He's actually the backup at the Packers. I think he's a good example of the fact that he's still ahead of Love. He's a good example of being with Aaron Rodgers for the last few years, learning from him, has elevated his game, and he was a guy that had been known for having a cannon, tremendous athleticism, but had threw a decent amount of picks, like had some decision-making issues, but had all the tools. He was 6'4", 230, like he was, could run everything. And I think that those mentorship things, Brady being under Bledsoe with Belichick, the Packers with the guy who's their head coach, with Aaron Rodgers, to ask questions to see the questions that Aaron Rodgers asks in a meeting. You're taking notes on that, right? And as a quarterback, which is the most studious position of all, you can learn a lot of things and now you enact it in practice and you make your decision-making better, can elevate you above a guy who has all the talent in the world, but now at the NFL level maybe isn't learning as well for whatever reason, doesn't have a guy to mentor him, not from a ability standpoint, but someone that works with him or a quarterback above him. That was the argument in the old days for taking your first-round draft pick quarterback like Aaron Rodgers was behind Brett Favre and sitting him for a few years so he could see what goes on. That was the old argument, which I think there's still some validity to. They can't afford to do it anymore. You can't afford to – you got the guy, he's got to get into the mix.
Yep.
You got a fast mentorship. Like, there's no time for it anymore because you're spending the money and the cap and all that kind of way it all works. But there is an argument for the fact that guys can sit underneath and see how the older guy does it at the NFL level and see how he handles the limelight as the quarterback, the decision-making on the field, before he has to just figure it out on your own, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with figuring it out on your own, but you make a lot more mistakes figuring it out on your own than if you could learn from somebody else's mistakes and go, okay, wait, maybe I shouldn't do that, and then you just automatically not do that when you get your opportunity. So I think I by the way, really good discussion on it, but I think that it's a last take with you. What do you think?
No, I mean, I think you're spot on with it. I think the bottom line is, and what you brought up in the first place with Chris Sims and how this all rolls in is, situation matters, right? Situation matters. And you don't know character. You don't know how any of these guys are going to handle adversity, right? So, the matchup, the situation for each individual is different. So that's why you don't really know. You can't predict what's going to happen with these guys when they get drafted, So, is Chris Sims out there? Who knows? Maybe he's just trying to write, get interesting stories, or maybe he's onto something, and who knows? But that's going to play out. That's going to play out. But I don't think that anybody can. Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it, brother. I don't think anybody can predict this stuff,
right?
And, especially with quarterback, it's such a mental thing, and have to be in the right situation. So. Great topics today. Fun.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. Great job. Great last take.
Appreciate it.
I'll let you know for football in the kitchen sink. Big Mondays.
Yes.
Big Mondays. Just like the old basketball Big Mondays. I don't know if they still have it or not.
Get the week going, man. Right?
Remember that Dickie V Big Monday?
I do remember that. I don't know if all right, my brother.
Hey, it's great having you on.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. All right.
Appreciate you, Coach. Take care, brother.